It was a quiet Saturday morning when Ryan Keller's world, already cracked and fragile, was about to change again. The sun had barely risen above the rooftops of Willow Creek, spilling golden light through the half-drawn blinds of his small apartment. The coffee on the counter had gone cold, untouched, as Ryan sat at the dining table staring at the empty chair across from him, the one that used to belong to his wife, Hannah. 2 months had passed since their divorce, but every inch of that apartment still carried her scent, her laughter, and the ghost of the family they once were. Their daughter, Sophie, only 6, was in her room drawing pictures of Mummy and Daddy holding hands, oblivious to the permanence of what had happened. Then came the knock, a soft, hesitant, almost trembling knock, not the kind that strangers make, but one that carried a memory. Ryan opened the door, expecting perhaps a delivery. Instead, standing in the pale morning light was Clara Rivers, Hannah's younger sister. Her eyes, deep hazel like her sister's, looked red from crying, her hands clutching a small suitcase. For a moment neither spoke. The air hung heavy between them, thick with unspoken pain. Before we go further, if you believe in second chances, family, and the power of kindness, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps more real, heart-touching stories like this reach people who might need them. 2. Ryan hadn't seen Clara since the divorce hearing. Back then, she couldn't even look at him. She had been Hannah's fiercest protector. Her little sister with a lion's heart. When the marriage fell apart, Clara's words were sharp and unforgiving. "You broke her, Ryan," she had said once, her voice cracking like dry ice, and now here she was on his doorstep, trembling and lost. "I didn't know where else to go," she finally whispered, her voice small but raw. Ryan blinked, confused. "Clara, what happened?" "I'll explain later," she murmured. "Please, I just need a place to stay for a few days." Something in her tone, fear, desperation, or maybe guilt, made Ryan step aside without another word. That first day passed like an awkward silence stretched thin. Sophie, delighted by the sudden arrival of Aunt Clara, kept showing her drawings and telling stories. Clara tried to smile, but it was forced, brittle. Ryan noticed how she barely touched her food, how her eyes darted to the window every few minutes as if expecting someone, or something. He didn't ask questions. He didn't have the strength for another emotional storm. But that night, after putting Sophie to bed, Ryan found Clara sitting on the balcony, hugging her knees, her face illuminated by the streetlight glow. He almost turned back inside, but her trembling shoulders stopped him. "She's not coming back, is she?" Clara said quietly without turning around. Ryan froze. "Hannah?" The Clara nodded. "I got a call 3 days ago. She's in New York. She said she's happy now, with someone else." The words cut through the night air like cold glass. Ryan had known deep down that Hannah had moved on, but hearing it from her sister made it real in a way he wasn't ready for. Clara turned to face him then, her eyes shimmering. "She told me not to contact her anymore. Said she wants a clean break. From me, from you, from everyone." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the quiet hum of the city filled the space. "Finally," Clara whispered, "I defended her through everything, even when she stopped calling me. But now I realize I've been alone too." Something softened in Ryan's chest, a strange, aching empathy. In that moment, they weren't enemies anymore. Just 2 broken people left behind by the same person. Over the next week, Clara settled slowly into their small home. She cooked breakfast for Sophie before school, tidied up the cluttered living room, and even helped Ryan with his job applications. He'd lost his office job after the divorce, struggling to balance single fatherhood with endless interviews that led nowhere. Life had become a series of rejections, until Clara came along with a strange kind of calm. She didn't talk much, but her quiet presence filled the emptiness Hannah had left behind. One afternoon, while Ryan was fixing a loose kitchen cabinet, Sophie came running with a drawing. "Daddy, Aunt Clara drew with me. Look, it's all 3 of us in the park." The picture showed a smiling man, a little girl, and a woman with long brown hair holding their hands. Ryan smiled weakly, but something inside him stirred, a warmth he hadn't felt in months. As days turned into weeks, small changes began to bloom like spring after a long winter. Clara started humming while cooking, laughter returned to the dinner table, and Sophie's nightmares faded. Ryan found himself looking forward to mornings again, waking up to the sound of breakfast being made, the smell of pancakes, and Clara's soft voice reading stories to Sophie. But happiness, he had learned, was fragile. One morning, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from Hannah. Short, cold, final. She wanted full custody of Sophie. Ryan's hands shook as he read it. Clara saw his face pale and took the letter from him. Her lips trembled as she read the words that tore through all of them. "She can't do this," Clara said fiercely. She walked away. "Ryan, she doesn't get to come back and take your daughter." Ryan slumped into the chair, defeated. "The law doesn't care who walked away. She's Sophie's mother." For the first time since she'd arrived, Clara raised her voice. "And you're her father, the one who stayed, the one who tucks her in, who makes her laugh, who loves her more than anything. Don't you dare give up now." Her words hit something deep in Ryan. That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about the life he'd built, not the one he lost. Maybe it was time to fight, not for revenge, but for love. The following week was a blur of meetings with lawyers, paperwork, and sleepless nights. Clara stood by him through it all, making sure Sophie never saw her father break. She became the quiet strength behind his every step. And slowly, Ryan began to notice things he hadn't before. The way Clara's eyes softened when she looked at Sophie, the way her laughter filled the silence, the way her presence healed wounds he thought were permanent. One evening, after putting Sophie to bed, Ryan found Clara on the balcony again, the same spot where they'd spoken that first night. The city lights flickered below, and the breeze carried the scent of rain. She looked up as he stepped out. "You didn't have to stay," he said softly. Clara smiled faintly. "Maybe I needed to." There was something in her tone, vulnerability mixed with quiet resolve. Ryan hesitated, searching for words, but she turned to face him. "I spent so long defending Hannah that I forgot to see the truth. You weren't the one who broke her, Ryan. You were the one trying to hold everything together while she was already gone." Her honesty cut through the fog in his mind. For the first time, he allowed himself to meet her gaze. Not as Hannah's sister, but as the woman who had stood beside him when no one else did. Days before the court hearing, something unexpected happened. Sophie fell ill with a high fever. Ryan panicked, memories of hospital nights flooding back. But Clara took charge, cool compresses, medicine, gentle whispers in the dark. She barely slept, sitting by Sophie's bedside until dawn. When Ryan saw her cradling the child in her arms, softly humming a lullaby, something in him broke, and healed all at once. At the custody hearing, the judge reviewed everything: Hannah's new life, Ryan's unemployment, his recovery, and most importantly, Sophie's testimony. When asked who she wanted to live with, Sophie pointed at her father and said, "With Daddy and Aunt Clara, because they make me happy." It was the simplest truth of all, and it carried more weight than any lawyer's argument. The judge smiled gently and ruled in Ryan's favor. Hannah didn't attend. That evening when they returned home, Sophie ran into Clara's arms shouting, "We won." Ryan stood behind them, tears brimming in his eyes. For the first time, the apartment didn't feel like a broken home. It felt alive, full of laughter and light. Weeks passed and life settled into a gentle rhythm. Ryan found a new job as a community art teacher, something that brought joy back into his tired hands. Clara started volunteering at a children's center nearby, rediscovering her purpose. Every small victory was celebrated together, with pancakes, drawings, and the unspoken bond of shared healing. One sunny afternoon, as they painted the living room walls a bright, hopeful yellow, Sophie giggled and splashed paint on both of them. Clara laughed, chasing her around with a brush, and Ryan watched them, heart full, eyes wet. He realized then that love didn't always come the way you expected. Sometimes it arrived quietly, wearing the face of forgiveness, and when Clara turned to him, paint streaked on her cheeks, smiling in that shy, radiant way, Ryan finally smiled back. Not with guilt, not with longing, but with peace. Because sometimes what's broken doesn't need to be replaced. It just needs to be rebuilt, with gentler hands, with truer love, and with people who choose to stay.